Good morning, Year 10. I hope you're all keeping well. This is just a quick update and a quick summary of the tasks that you're going to be completing within the next couple of weeks. Well done to those that have completed the work on Elizabeth during the first 3 weeks of lockdown. The quality of work I received was fantastic, and a lot of you are recalling some very, very important content that's going to come really useful for when you do the real exam. First of all, let's see if we can recall some of the key words. If you want to pause the clip here before I reveal them, then feel free to do so. So you'll need to go over what Germany was like in the 1890s, how much power the Kaiser had, how much power was shifting from the Kaiser to Parliament. Do you remember those lessons where we decided whether Germany was becoming a parliamentary democracy or whether it was an autocracy? Now, in 1890, it's fair to say that the power lay overwhelmingly with the Kaiser. However, in the years leading up to the First World War, some could argue that there was a shift in power from the Kaiser to the Reichstag, the German parliament. So where did the power lie? Where was the evidence to say that the power lied with Wilhelm? Well, he inherited a strong monarchy in 1888. It was actually his grandfather, Wilhelm I, that had been King of Prussia. The Kaiser, constitutionally, was above all the advisors, ministers, and chief ministers. Wilhelm II would sack any ministers he no longer wanted. The building of Germany's industry was known as industrialization, and many of the rich and powerful supported the Kaiser. They would support the Kaiser because they feared socialism would affect their own status, their business, and their wealth. Germany had caught Britain up with regards to the production of iron, steel, and coal. This made Germans, particularly the upper classes, more supportive of the Kaiser and less in favour of political change. The Kaiser made all the decisions that related to the army, navy, and other foreign countries. In other words, foreign policy. If you are in charge of the army, navy, and military, then you basically have all the power. But what evidence is there to suggest that there was a shift from the Kaiser to a parliamentary government, to the Reichstag? Well, the Reichstag discussed and voted on laws that the Kaiser and ministers drew up. Germany went through a period of industrialization. This meant that Germany relied on its workers that worked in its factory, its mines, and its workshops to build those industries. Workers began to demand representation, and men over the age of 25 could vote. Many workers joined trade unions. This meant that they had representation if they were unhappy with their wages or their poor working conditions. They could organize strikes that would withdraw their labour. There was a choice of political parties. Many workers started to vote for the Social Democratic Party. This was the Socialist Party. They believed in socialism, equality among the people. Now, this rise in socialism was a worry for the Kaiser. Some wanted the Kaiser to share more of his power with the Reichstag. Others believed that the Kaiser should be overthrown and wanted to start a revolution. It is important that we remain familiar with the German exam questions, their format, focus, and their marks awarded. Remember, for this lesson, we looked at question 4, the describing question. Feel free to have a go at this exam question now as a practice. Remember, it's only worth 4 marks, and you shouldn't really spend more than 5, maybe 6 minutes on it. Describe 2 ways in which parliamentary democracy increased in Germany in the 1890s. For a level 2, you need to show in-depth knowledge about 2 ways that Germany was increasingly becoming a parliamentary democracy. For level 1, you can write about 1 way in detail, or you can write 2 ways in not so much detail. Just make very basic points. When answering this, obviously, you want to try for the level 2. What were the 4 main problems that we went over that the Kaiser experienced during the 1890s and the 1900s? Well, we've already discussed industrialization, supported by the rich with their money invested in it, but it relied upon the working men in the factories and down the mines. The growth of socialism, those workers were more likely to vote for the SPD because they were in favour of equality. They were in favour of redistributing the wealth, improving wages for workers, and improving conditions for workers. A place in the sun. The Kaiser felt obliged to compete with Britain, France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, all of those countries that were building empires in Europe and had done in the 19th century. This was known as Weltpolitik, meaning world policy or world politics. Germany looked to African colonies in order to achieve a place in the sun and building a navy. Britain had the largest navy in the world. The Kaiser wanted to compete with Britain. The Kaiser thought it would help Germany take over more countries and protect the countries already in the German Empire. Have a read over some of the problems the Kaiser faced by 1914. Now we've got 9 potential problems here that we looked at in class. You were asked to make a decision on what you think was the biggest problem. Have another read through and see if you can pick what you believe to be the biggest problem the Kaiser would have faced. Make sure you are able to give a reason why. When Germany joined the war, the country on the whole was in favour of war. It was seen as an adventure. War weariness was shown when 500 women gathered in front of the German parliament saying they wanted back their men from the trenches, their fathers, their husbands,
their sons, their brothers. A year later, 10,000 workers assembled in Berlin to shout "Down with the war, down with the government." The police quickly moved in to make arrests and calm the situation.
Why was there such a changing attitude towards war in the space of a year? Then of course there's the impact that the First World War had on Germany and the Kaiser, politically, economically and socially. In fact, we put together a really good answer to a question 5. And here it is. In what ways were the lives of people in Germany affected by World War I? There were the 4 areas that we discussed, although you could bring in any other relevant information. The sentence starters were on the right, and between us, we put together those 3 strong paragraphs, which, if you look at the mark scheme, should reach a level 4 answer. Remember, the 3rd paragraph was only there as an extra point to make up for any marks you may have lost on the way. And what about when war ends? So we've got the Kaiser in the middle, with Wilhelm on the left and his grandson Prince Wilhelm on the right. By 1918, Germany was losing the war, so his family was showing concern. Now, an activity I get my students to do is to then advise the Kaiser what to do next. It's November 1918. Germany are losing the war. There are revolutions breaking out, mutiny breaking out in places like Kiel. What do you do? As Kaiser, do you stay in charge but create a new parliament to follow your instructions? Do you just bring the soldiers home, end the war, in the hope that they can rebuild the country? Or do you leave Germany and your position as Kaiser? So this is what happens. Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany abdicates. The armistice ends war. The Kaiser flees to Holland. Now, who is this saying Guten Tag? So the leader of Germany's largest political party, Friedrich Ebert, is appointed Chancellor. He will become the first elected president of Germany, and it is the new Weimar Republic that he helped to set up that you will be recapping over the next couple of weeks. Now, do we remember the economic, political and social impacts of the war on Germany? Have another read through those. Which category would you put each one under? Economic, political or social? Year 10, I hope you have found this brief recap helpful. Good luck with completing the first 3 titles of your workbooklet. Feel free to email me or contact me via Show My Homework if you do have any difficulties. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy.